Hey everybody, this is Erman with MixKnowledgy. MixKnowledgy is a mixture and form event series in LA, New York City, and Chicago this summer. Tonight is sponsored by Indie Magazine. We have the awesome Adam Robitel with us and my co-founder, Brandon Waites. Adam is hi Brandon. Adam is a protege of acclaimed producer Bryan Singer, and he is the writer and director of modern horror classic The Taking of Deborah Logan, which actually has a 100% rating on Rotten Tomatoes right now, and was called a Netflix horror gem by The Wrap. Up next, you can find him at the helm for the next Insidious film, Insidious Chapter 4. Everybody, please welcome Adam Robitel.
Hey, guys.
Yay! That's my little cheer. That's my cheer for you because everybody's muted, right? No. But Adam, it's great to have you. Brandon and I are very pleased that you're here with us on a Sunday afternoon, and we'll get right to the interview. But first, something I want to talk about during our little introduction here. You mentioned you're in pre-production right now of Insidious?
Yes, we are in pre-production for a start date of August 15th.
Oh, love it. Very, very cool. When is the release date? Do you have that right now?
You know, it's the week of Halloween, 2017. So
wow.
I should know the day off the top of my head, so it's sacrilege not to know the actual day, but it's right before Halloween. It's a pretty sweet date, and we're all really excited about the date.
Oh, fantastic. Brandon and I are huge horror fans ourselves, so Brandon, take it away, man.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to ask real quick, how long is your shoot scheduled for?
We're scheduled for 30 days, which seems like a luxury coming from a smaller movie of 20 days, but, everything's sort of proportional. So, 30-day shooting schedule.
Nice. That's nice. So I know you attended USC, correct? Their cinema school?
I did, yes.
Yes.
Right on.
What's that? Right on, Trojans?
Fight on, Trojans.
There you go. So my question regarding USC, a lot of people debate on whether, film school or should you try to establish connections. Which do you believe is more important?
It's really interesting. I was watching Vice last night, and this epidemic of student debt and how, particularly the for-profit schools are really just killing kids with incredible debt that they can't get out of. And I certainly still owe USC quite a chunk of change. I would say that it really depends on the individual. I had some growing up to do in my early 20s and was a bit of a party guy and just was not very mature. So in some ways that 4 years can be trial by fire. You're away from your parents, you have all these liberties, and USC is a great film school. And I'd say the best value I had was I really shifted my focus into movies being an art form, and it exposed me to just really thinking critically about movies. But I do believe, if you're a self-starter and you can, discipline yourself, you can get a lot of the education you would need on the outside world. So it really depends on the individual and what their goals are. The good news about going to school is you're able to get on crews and you're sort of able to dip your toes into a bunch of different capacities to sort of figure out what you want to do. But the same is true for, getting on sets, starting as a PA and sort of working your way up that way as well. So, yeah, I would say it's for the individual and where they're at with what they want to, some people don't like school, they don't like the process of that, right. So it really depends.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And speaking of school, if you don't mind taking us back just a little bit more, I'm sure not every filmmaker wakes up and goes, I'm going to make some movies. What was your introduction to cinema? What was your, starts? What made you interested in the filmmaking process, if you will? Unlike
a lot of the directors I know who sort of like Brian, at 5 years old was making short films and knew he wanted to be a director. When I came to LA, I honestly, full candor, just wanted to be famous. I was class clown and class president. I was a bit of a attention whore, and I wanted to be an actor, but I just wasn't serious about it, and didn't have the thick skin to kind of live the auditioning lifestyle. So I started as an actor initially, and sort of through the process of trial and error, kind of found my way to making movies and wanting to make movies. And it was a bit of an iterative process for me, going from acting into editing and then eventually trying to write, and then realizing how painful writing is because it's really a lonely process. And then ultimately, in the truncated version, is I wrote a script that Guillermo del Toro optioned and sort of put me on the map, but it was sort of stuck in a holding pattern for a couple of years while he was making Pacific Rim, and I really, was hoping he had said he was potentially going to do this script that I wrote, The Bloody Benders, next after Pacific Rim. So I literally waited for 2 years for that to happen, and when it didn't, I sort of had the writing on the wall, like, oh shit, I need to make something. It really, because what happens is if you start with the writing side of it and you get any attention, you start taking all these general meetings, and there's a huge difference between taking general meetings on a good writing sample versus having a movie under your belt, because a movie is tangible. People can watch it, and if they like it, you don't have to sell yourself as hard when you go into these rooms. They've seen the material and they're like, oh, you kind of know what you're doing. So in retrospect, getting the movie made was like a sea change for me, because I didn't have to kind of go in and say, I have all these ideas and this and that. And, it's like, watch the movie, check it out. If you like it, maybe we can find something to do together. So I'm not sure if that answers the question.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. That answers my question for sure.
So what's the outcome of Bloody Benders? What's the current status?
It's back in my hands, and I very much plan on getting it made. It's I think still the best piece of writing that I have ever done, and it's based on a true story of a family of serial killers and that moved into the Kansas territory in the 1870s, and led by their young daughter Kate Bender, who was like 17 at the time, and she was beautiful, and she would seduce these guys that would get to their one-room inn, and the father would come up behind them and hit them on the head with a sledgehammer. And the family sort of institutionalized murder. I mean, they premeditated it. They built the inn with a trapdoor in the basement, and there was a lot of like torture porn versions of the script of this idea floating around. But I wrote a really sort of twisted love story. So at the top of the movie, she meets an emancipated slave, and he's the only guy in town who doesn't try to force himself on her, and she kind of falls for him. So the movie's really a twisted Coen brothers love story, but set against these horrific murders, and that really appealed to me.
I love it.
Awesome.
And
sounds like a nice family.
A family that slays together stays together. That's what I say.
Yeah.
There you go.
Or slays together. Yeah. What is it about horror that intrigues you? Because I notice your filmography is focused a lot on horror. What about it is something that pleases you as an audience member, even more so than just a filmmaker, but even as an audience member? Why? What intrigues you about it?
A couple of things. But my grandmother, who was like my mentor and my best bud growing up, she used to scare the shit out of my sister and I. We would go up to her house in the middle of the woods in New Hampshire, and in the 70s they had basically a sort of a more advanced version of a Ouija board that they would play, and horrifically scary stories about this entity that was in the board. And she's a very smart woman, and I have grown adult cousins who won't talk about that time, and some of the stories were just incredibly scary about it started to materialize itself physically. Like one time the dog had died, and they said, where is Sheba? And it said, look to the fireplace, and then all the logs fell down in the perfect shape of a collie, and this was witnessed by like 20 people. And so it became a recurring theme of my grandmother scaring us with these true stories, at least true to them, what they experienced. And so I always loved that. And then there's all these really creepy country roads, and there was a cemetery at the end of the road, and so I'd always bring the little kids up late at night and love to jump out from behind trees. And so the sort of the manipulation of scaring people was sort of in my DNA. And horror is the most manipulative of genres. You use all the bells and whistles of editing and timing and misdirects, and so even the root of the word horror, horrere, means to bristle, which means, the hairs in the back of your neck stand up. And so it has a physiological impact on people when they experience it. And so that all of those things appeal to me. But then also the practical side of it, the business side of it, horror films, they're sort of like low-hanging fruit. If you make one and it's cheap enough, it will find an audience. And so it seemed like the win-win to sort of focus there first.
Very true. Very true. What has been your favorite horror film? I know that you must hear that a lot. With that being said, you mentioned low-budget horror films. What has been your favorite low-budget horror film in the last?
I mean, I always go to the one that's sort of the most current that really kind of influenced me was a movie called Session 9 that I saw with Michael Dougherty, who's a friend, and we went and saw an early screening. It was like one of the first horror films shot in HD. I mean, of course, I love all the classics, Exorcist, Shining, all those, but Session 9, they shot it in the Danvers Insane Asylum, and Brad Anderson, the director, and the writer, like they went to this asylum, which was an incredibly gothic, elephantine place, and they wrote the script based on the location, and it was just so well done, and it was like a slow burn. It felt very Shining-esque, and so I always say that as one that really figures largely in my psyche. I always listen to the soundtrack when I'm writing as well. It's just a great atonal, creepy soundtrack. But I'm a early Aja stuff, like slasher stuff, and obviously Wes Craven. Grew up all the classics that we know and love, and so really across the board. But for me, it has to be grounded, and I have to really care about the characters, and that's always what seems to be missing from most, particularly when you're a young filmmaker. It's so easy to do, the nubile teens who are, doing drugs and having sex, and it's just like that bores me to death. I'd much rather see a family that's real and grounded and that you can relate to, and then put them into a horrible situation.
So Adam, you said you mentioned Brian earlier, and you're known for basically being his protege. Brian Singer, producer director of the X-Men movies, also like Trick or Treat. But how did you initially get involved with Brian, and how has your interactions with him evolved from?
Well, getting back to when I first came to LA, I wanted to be an actor, and I was a martial artist and a gymnast, and was quite, really convinced I wanted to like jump off buildings and stuff. And so I did. A mutual friend at USC introduced us, and we sort of hit it off. And this was like in, maybe early 2000. And he knew I wanted to do stunt work, and so I ended up sort of manipulating my way into X-Men, doing a stunt job. I was standing behind Halle Berry in the train station sequence. I get hit by Sabretooth, and it was a ratchet job, so I got pulled off screen, and it was really fun. But I remember the stunt coordinator, Gary Jensen, he sort of took me under his wing, and he and his son, and they were really. It's a real great sort of insular world, the stunt world. And I remember seeing Gary a few months later, and he just looked different. His face looked different. And looking closer, he had all this reconstructive surgery since I had last seen him in an air chair, basically. Those devices that launch stunt guys in the air had misfired and hit him in the face. And I was like, maybe I don't want to do this. It was like a wake-up call, it's you got to really, really love it and want to take those, take the licks. So, so that was my sort of way in, and with Brian, and then we ended up. I sort of switched gears into editing and sort of taught myself how to edit and got really good at editing. And then when Superman Returns came about, I got to go to Sydney and produce and edit 30 making of documentaries. At the time, it was just really Brian and also Peter Jackson on King Kong. They were doing these video blogs that would go up every week on the Warner Brothers website, and over a million people a week were watching these things. And so I got to really I became a ninja at sort of taking all these hours and hours of disparate documentary footage, behind the scenes footage, and then stitching it together. So it was a great sort of film school. You talk about, where you get your skills from, and editing is something that anybody can learn. They can go and get a sort of a cheap version of Final Cut. They can start playing with footage. They can learn how to cut stuff, how to trim stuff, how to get into scenes late and get out early. All that stuff that is just at all of our fingertips right now, So that was really my transition. And then as the acting thing sort of became less important to me, I really started to focus on, the other side of the camera.
Awesome.
Well, hey,
Brian was the executive producer of the Taking of Deborah Logan, correct?
Yes, I pitched. When I had the idea, I knew Brian was a bit of a hypochondriac and loved all things medical, and he produced House, and so I had found this really creepy, sad, heartrending clip of a woman. It was like it was like a 2020 episode, and it was a woman she had early onset Alzheimer's, and she was probably about 45 or 50, and she was talking quite lucidly about what it would be like to lose her mind, and she was writing notes on mirrors and just, dreading the coming of the disease. And then it cut to her a year later, and, just an edit. And she was in an adult high chair. She didn't recognize her husband, her family. She was going in and out of, laughing and giggling and then deep anger and fury in the spell of a few seconds. And I showed Brian this clip. And I said, I want to do this, but I want to do it as a possession movie. I want to do a doc, and you could see the wheels in his brain turning, because it was such a fresh sort of way into something that is ultimately very familiar.
Great. Well, you talked about personal experiences that you're able to use for your scares. What I want to know is, because I come across a lot of writers who feel this way or who experience this, but a lot of dreams help with a lot of horror filmmakers. Do you find that in your case as well?
Yeah, I definitely have crazy, surreal dreams. I mean, it hasn't ever been, directly related to an image. I mean, I see a lot of images sometimes, and so they'll sort of figure into my consciousness, and I'm starting to notice themes in my own work, and I'm only a couple of projects in terms of finding my voice, but I'm starting to notice motifs and things that scared me as a kid that start to kind of permeate the work, for sure.
Awesome. And there seems to be a trend nowadays. I'm not sure how big it is, but a small trend nowadays where you see a lot of some films that have started from, say, teasers or 2-minute shorts, and they're actually developed when they're discovered by big filmmakers. Take Lights Out coming out, and something like Mama, which is based on a 2-minute teaser. Do you see a future in that type of filmmaking, or in short form horror films that can actually lead to bigger budget projects?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, cutting your teeth and doing something really special that gets people's attention is a great way in, for sure. The proof is in the pudding. It is hard to expand. It'll be fun to see Lights Out and what they did with it. And when I saw James recently, he was all excited about it. And I know it's coming out soon, I think. But you cut your teeth, you do something cool in the short film kind of realm, and then the trick is to expand it to 90 minutes, right? Because there's a big difference between the 8 or 10 or 15-minute short. But I mean, it's a great way to sort of cut your teeth, and then also to prove that, because it's a sort of a learning on the job kind of situation. You don't really quite know what you're doing until you do it, right? It's a weird conundrum. So I definitely think that's a great way in. And the thing I say to my co-writer Gavin Heffernan and I, who we're always trying to pitch things, and we just pitched something that with a friend, Chris Landon, that we sold to Fox 2000. And the thing I tell people now is it's all about concept. The concept has to be really, really strong, and there has to be some sort of marketing hook. You have to think like a marketer in a sense of, and people have such divided attention right now with Twitter and Snapchat, and we just our attention span's short now, right? So that's why an idea like Lights Out is very simple, it's easy to grasp, and it's just sort of a genius marketing hook. Now, the proof will either be in the pudding or not, but for me, so we always think about concept first. What's the 20-second pitch? What's the 20-word pitch? And will it cut through the noise? And look, it's really hard to come up with something original. At the end of the day, it's always going to have a shade of the familiar. And a book that I always plug to any of my friends who want to get into the business is Save the Cat by Blake Snyder. It really sort of changed the way I think about approaching material. And, movies are math, and, you have to have the sort of the key beats. And not that I should embrace formula. I know probably a lot of screenwriter friends and if they listen to this would, oh God, he's quoting Save the Cat. But it literally, I read the book and then I wrote The Bloody Bender. So for me, I'm like a diehard apostle of Blake Snyder.
That's a fantastic book. It took me through college, that book, on screenwriting. So once again, if you guys haven't, any writers out there who are listening, and if you haven't read the book, Save the Cat by Blake Snyder is a must-read for aspiring screenwriters. So thank you for pointing that out, Adam.
Yeah, it's a great book, and and anybody who studies screenwriting, it won't say anything that you don't already know or you haven't read from Sid Fields or any of those other Robert McKee books, but it just puts it in a very simple way. And then you start watching movies and you see, oh, there's the midpoint, there's the all is lost. So you start to kind of sharpen your brain to see the nuts and bolts. You kind of start to learn how the quote sausage is made, and in some ways it kind of ruins movies in a way because you start to see the machinery of plot. But it's imperative because it's all about pacing and it's all about that first 5 pages and who's your protagonist and what's his story, what are the things that he needs to overcome, and it's all stuff that you constantly. And by the way, every time we start to write, whether it's my writing partner or myself, if I endeavor to write something alone, it's always incredibly scary. And so the other big thing that really changed for me was when I learned how to outline properly. That's the work, is the outlining process. And if you do that right, when you get to script, it's a lot easier.
So when I went to see Jason Taylor at the Bad Hat Harry Productions office on the Fox lot, and he told me how excited you were about the Deborah Logan swallowing the head scene. And my question is, how did that idea come about?
Well, I mean, a couple of things. I mean, I've said in other interviews now, like I can go online tomorrow or today after I get off this call and look up and see a Jordanian pilot be burned alive by ISIS. Like I can go and watch live leak these horrific images, and so we are desensitized in some ways, and so it's not about the image anymore. It's about the context and how it fits into the narrative and how you get to that image that really makes it work or not. And a movie that's all CG where everything's painted and fake. I mean, you can do a bunch of crazy images, but they become meaningless if they're not earned, And so for me, with The Taking, I always knew that I wanted to start really grounded with a real medical documentary that slowly comes unhinged. And so by the end, I got really excited. I said I want one image that becomes viral. And look, we didn't have any marketing budget, and so that image became viral, and people were sharing it on Tumblr, and so we sort of got dumped right to Netflix, and it was really we had an early test screening of The Taking of Deborah Logan. The movie was not finished, and we didn't have any. It was a terrible sound mix, and we had actors looking at blank computer screens. It's supposed to be a documentary, and so the test screening was brutal, and they gave us like a 30-page document about how the movie doesn't work, and it won't test with it won't, certain demographics, nobody will like it, and I was crushed. I was absolutely crushed. But by the time it got to Netflix and it was finished and was ready to truly be seen, that image of her, the swallow shot, really got people talking. So a lot of kids and people and fans will find that image first, and they're like, "Where is this from?" And they'll go back and discover the movie. So I knew going in, I wanted one big image that was iconic that people would talk about, and so it was very. And when we came up with it, I was so excited by the idea. If I could start grounded and then get this sweet grandmother into this place where she's literally swallowing a little kid's head. It was like I was giddy that day and sort of bouncing around the office, excited by it. And it was all, and also was, again, it was earned thematically because she's being possessed by, this sort of snake entity, if you will. And so it all just, the haunting stuff all was leading towards story idea.
Right.
So, yeah.
Was it difficult to set that scene up?
I'm sorry?
Was it difficult to set that scene up?
We tried to do it practically when we shot the movie in North Carolina with just real practical effects, and that was a bit of a disaster. And then we did one extra day of reshoots where Soho Effects, a company out of Canada, who does a lot of X-Men stuff, and had worked with Brian before. They totally did a solid for us and hooked us up, and so I'm so grateful for that. And it was a series of, composited shots, and we had a 3D scan of our lead actor, Jill Larson. And so it was definitely involved for a little movie to pull that off. But I think we it was also, I was very mindful of, wanting to creep around the corner and just see a little bit of it. I felt like it would be successful if the audience was like, wait, what the fuck was that? Did we just see that? And so it's, right. If you notice, it's not for 30 seconds. It's only a couple of frames, and then you're off of it. And so, it really is the money shot of the movie, so.
So, Adam, my next question for you, it may seem a little obvious to some, but I'd love to hear it from you directly. Studio versus indie, what advantages and disadvantages do you feel you have with one over the other, as a horror filmmaker specifically?
Yeah, I mean, look, Eddie, it's all about control, right? I mean, the smaller the project, the more creative control you're going to have. And, for the first film, I was really protected by Brian and by Bad Hat Harry to make the movie I wanted to make. And naturally, as you start to kind of get into bigger budgets and you get more cooks in the kitchen and, and stepping into now a franchise, it's not as autonomous. You start to you get into more of the team player role, and so they have their benefits and they have the downsides. I mean, the downside of indie is you're picking up lights and you're doing the role of 10 people sometimes. So studios tend to be a little more risk averse and want to play it safe, and they've got their bottom line that they have to worry about. So it's just a different mindset. So again, but when you're starting out, you're going to start indie, so it's a great, we all experience it. And by the way, the work is still the work, and no matter what size movie, it's all the sort of same process in a way. So
right.
I'm not sure if that answers the question.
Yeah,
definitely it does. Yeah.
So you've collaborated with people like Del Toro and Bryan Singer, James Wan, Jason Blum. What's the biggest piece of advice that one of them have given you in your career?
I try to learn from everybody, and James is very much about the relatability of characters and sort of what I was talking about earlier. And Brian was very much about what are the 5 images? What are those images that have not been seen before? And again, it's really hard when we live in this day and age where anything is possible. So and with Brian, it was all about logic. So if they found a body in the backyard, why wouldn't they call the police? And you have to really, really force yourself to put yourself in the character's perspective and then say, what would real people do in this situation? Not what would movie people do, what would real people do? And that elevates the material. You get so far away from, just the bad films, just by that concept, if you're constantly asking yourself that question. James is the master of the jump scare and of setting up a scare and then delivering, and he just knows the timing of it all. And so he's sort of like the textbook of the sort of modern ghost story and the jump. So he's the king, Puba, in that respect. And so everybody has their own style. Like Del Toro is clearly a master, and he's much more of an expressive sort of, he goes more into the kind of fantastic realm, and I'm still sort of discovering what my thing is, and I don't, hopefully it'll reveal itself eventually.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll find it soon, Adam. We do have a few more questions before we jump into the Q&A with the audience. I would love to know, I'm sure you hear this a lot too, what scares you? I read somewhere that it takes a lot to scare you, but what does scare you, just as a regular person?
I mean, right now it's just all the political turmoil that's happening. I mean, I get more frightened by, ISIS and, political unrest and, where the world is going. So, I mean, the bigger sort of the global warming of it all and humanity scares me. And in a weird way, horror doesn't scare. A horror film is a way to achieve catharsis. And it's funny, we were talking. I was out with my crew at lunch, and I have a friend who also, works a lot with comedy people, and like how comedy people tend to be really like depressed and dark, and yet the horror crowd are much more uplifted. And so we achieve a certain levity. We get to look death in the eye and sort of laugh about it by making these movies. And so there's a sense of escapism. And again, getting back to your initial question about Deborah Logan, if I had stayed in just the grounded documentary Alzheimer's, it would have been too depressing, and it wouldn't have provided the escape valve that the audience needed in the third act. To say ultimately that this is a movie and this is imagination. So what scares me personally, I mean, look, mortality, of not really realizing my full potential. I mean, those kinds of heady kind of things scare me. But then, if you get into the childhood stuff, I mean, I'm scared of clowns and all that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah.
And I want to believe in ghosts. I mean, I did when I was a kid, and I'm sort of going through my own crisis of belief in, God, and I'm sort of agnostic right now. And I lost my grandmother a couple of years ago, and I'm still waiting for her to sort of reach out. I haven't, she said she would, but she hasn't. And so it's like, where are you? So I'm willing to. I'd love for that to happen. I'd love to hear from her, one way or the other. So that is scary. To really feel that this is all there is.
I think that's a log line right there, Adam. I think that's a log line right there for a feature film.
What's that?
I think that's a log line for a feature film. Well, in regards to reaching out to hey, I'm just putting out there. I'm just saying. But I would love to know.
And that's why.
Oh, sorry.
And that's why if you go back to even Christianity, I mean, not to get too deep, but like the reason this Christ, the ideas of Christ and resurrection, and I mean, those powerful ideas have been with us because we so desperately want to believe that there's something else, that when we go, that there's going to be, something beyond the pale, and that's why I think horror is always going to have a place in the zeitgeist. I mean, people, we're all, and as we get older, we start to lose parents and loved ones, and so, as you get closer and closer, you want that answer, and it doesn't come, and so you only get brushes with it, and that's what horror does. It looks at those little cracks in reality and sort of celebrates them.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of which, say 100 years from now when we're all gone, what horror film would you like, whoever is opening up the time capsule, what would you like them to watch in 100 years from now?
Just in movies in general?
Well, what's like a penultimate horror film specifically that the future has to see?
God, that's a hard one. That's a real hard one. I'll have to come back to that. My brain just started.
Well, I will give you a few minutes because we are going to hop into the Q&A portion. Let's see. Who do we have first? Let's go with Bridget. Bridget, welcome to the interview with Adam Robitel. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Oh, cool. Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. Hey, I'm Bridget out of Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm a writer. And my question is this: when you have written several different screenplays and you produced and wrote a short, and now you're submitting that to film festivals, how do you get the attention of a literary agent? Because every time I try to submit to a literary agent, they have this big no unsolicited material. So I'm like, I can't send anything to anybody.
God, that is always the conundrum, and I look. I mean, the sad truth is you have to. I would say it is a Byzantine, like it's sort of like this special club, and so the way I would suggest is if you really want to write, is it screenplays you want to get into?
Yeah, screenplays. Yeah, I produced a short film, and I got it in some film festivals now. So I'm thinking that's probably the only way I would be able to meet some agents is by, getting in these film festivals.
Right. Do you want to direct or you just want to write?
Mostly write.
Mostly write, yeah. I mean, I honestly, I tell people, you know, you eventually you have to come to LA because
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I do.
you know, because what happens is if you come to LA and you get to work, you know, you get a job as a temp or something, or you start to meet people, and that's usually the way it works, which is you make a relationship, you slip somebody something, and even, you know, the people that, because I was working like on Superman Returns and stuff, it's so hard to get somebody to read your material. And now that I'm getting busy, like I do have friends who are like, you know, can you read something? And I used to be pretty available for that, but now, you know, time gets tougher. So if you're out of state initially in Atlanta, it's tricky. It is really tricky because you need like, it's like you would, if you work for as a temp, for example, you would meet somebody in like junior executive level, and a lot of times they have gatekeepers who will keep, you know, they'll do blind submissions, and, you know, they'll keep the material from the people that actually matter, and you know, there's like these gatekeepers who stop the flow of scripts. So the other side of that is to really try like the Dickens to get a feature made, you know, because the shorts will only get you so far. So I honestly tell everybody, focus on a small movie that you can go and raise even $100,000 to make, because there's a huge difference between having a short and then having a feature film under your belt. And Atlanta's the good news is Atlanta has a big film community, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, I remember like all of my crew from North Carolina was moving to Atlanta. Is it still robust over there?
It is. It really is. It's growing a lot. But, you know, when it comes to, you know, getting representation for like an agent, I have to be either in New York or LA because we don't have any agencies here. So everybody's saying, well, you need to go over to New York or LA. I'm like, oh boy. So
what kind of material are you writing? Like, what are the movies you're writing?
Oh, I'm a drama queen. Oh, drama. I love drama. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I do too, and sadly, the world of drama is it's really hard to get a drama made these days. I mean, there's that window has become harder and harder to get going, and you know, I would really focus on a small, like a Sundance-y kind of thing that you can, you know, that you really believe in, that is your opus, and then, you know, take the power in your own hands, because writers are really, you know, they don't have much control, but if you're really adamant about producing something and willing something into existence, and you have this blueprint, you have this script that you believe in, that's a place of power, because then you can start, you know, trying to find a way to finance it and get it made. And so, you know, you got to be a writer-producer as well, is what I would say initially. Right. But nothing really beats, you know, making the move, you know. And there's a great script. There's a Script Notes, which is John August podcast. I don't know if you guys listen to that. It's an amazing podcast. There's like 300 hours. John August, who wrote Big Fish and Go, and he and Craig Mazin, they do this podcast, and there's like hundreds of hours, and so they will much more articulately, that's not even a word, they will much more clearly illustrate like the ways in which you can kind of reach out to these kind of, agencies are notorious for not wanting to look at material, and it's such a catch-22. Right. So I would say focus on empowering yourself by writing something that, and it can't have, you think about limiting locations, think about, you know, your company moves, you want to have something, and that's why for me, found footage horror was a way to make something that I knew I could make cheaply, that would look good still, because it was supposed to be a documentary. So you got to think like a producer in that sense. And you know, dramas are harder, you know. So the other side of that is, you know, getting on a show. If you can get on a show that's shooting in Atlanta, you know, and work your way up the production on that sense, you know, you can start to slip it to people who might be able to get it to the gatekeepers. And so that would be my suggestion.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Yeah,
Thank
you know,
so
and the good news is you're writing, and the fact that you have a finished screenplay is a huge deal. So you have to give yourself great credit for that. You know, there's a lot of people who never finish something, so that's a huge hurdle. And congratulations on that.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Bridget.
Up next, we have, let's go with Travis. Travis, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hey, Travis.
Hey, Brandon. All right, so
Hey.
my question is, when I wrote it, it sounded good, but now I'm trying to say it, I'm like drawing a blank here.
Take your time.
So basically, do you think that sequels to horror movies have a bad reputation? And if you think that's true, then how do you try to combat that or change people's perception on that?
Look, I mean, I can see both sides. It is so hard to make a franchise, and everybody wants to make a franchise because what happens is, the brand awareness, the money that it takes, particularly for like a theatrical movie, the money that it takes to create an imprint and to create a brand recognition is so astronomical. Like, even an Insidious movie, they're going to spend 3 times the budget on the marketing, right? So I can see the studio's perspective. They have something that works, people will show up for it, so they're going to make more of them, right? And so the trick is, they do have a bad rap, and rightfully so, because usually sequels are sort of, unless it's like Aliens, it's rare to have a sequel that's actually worth its weight. So from the filmmaking side, I really come from a cynical place of like, why does this movie need to exist? And are we doing this for the buck, or is there an actual valid reason for the movie to exist? And everybody begrudges remakes and so forth, and I can see both sides for sure. And that's why like a movie like Babadook or any of the other sort of like, It Follows, it's such a coup when it happens because it's so hard. If you look at the statistics, God, there'll be like I think there's something like 500 movies still be made next year. And you think of the number that will actually go theatrical, it's just really hard to kind of break out. And so it is a mixed bag for sure.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, Travis. Up next, we have, let's go with Sean. Sean, can you hear us?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Hey.
How's it going, Sean?
Hello, can you hear me? Hey. Hey Adam, thanks for being with us. I'm Sean Hamasian. I wrote and directed a short film called Night of the Slasher. I think Brandon might have sent it to you a while back. Do you remember it? Can you guys hear me? Hello?
Hello?
Yep.
I hear you, Sean.
Yep.
Did we lose Brandon?
Yeah. Hello?
Hello.
Yeah. I hear
Yeah, I
you.
can hear you guys.
Hey, Sean.
Okay.
I hear you.
I don't know.
Yep.
Okay.
You
Hey guys. So I'll start over. Hi, I'm Sean Amasian, writer-director. So, do you remember the short film? Did you? I don't know if you had a chance to look at it, Adam. But anyway, it's been super successful, and I'm taking a lot of generals right now, and with a lot of interested production companies are interested in doing the feature version. They just want to see a script at this point. We're about to let it loose pretty soon. Me and my manager take it out on the town. So interest seems pretty high, and I really want this to be my first feature film. I think it would be a great debut because it's something I really do care about. And the short, and people, it already has a following. The short film has already been spread virally. Just the news about it. It's not even out online yet, but people are still interested in it. So, but at the same time, there's other projects coming my way too that are, like they're just open directing assignments,
Right.
and hey, they're not, I don't care about them as much, but it's money, and my manager's like, hey, it's a job, you can still do that too. So, what's the better route to go? Do a movie that is in your own original voice as a director as a first impression, or doing just whatever, any job that comes your way? What does that spell out for a director's future?
That's a hard one. I mean, first of all, congratulations. That's awesome. I'm excited for you. And sounds like you're onto something. I mean, the first question I'd ask is the feature version of your short, is it going to be expensive? Like, how much are you going to need?
No, it's like Blumhouse level, like between 2.5 to 5. It just depends.
Yeah. It's contained.
Yeah, it's pretty contained. It's doable. Yeah.
Yeah, I look, if that's your passion, if that's truly your look. The other thing that's weird is when you get open directing assignments kind of given to you and stuff. It's rare to find good material. So if you find an ODA that is, 75% there, and it's something you can get your head around, and there's money, and they want to hire you, and they want to attach you, and it's like there's a viability that it'll go, and then I would say then do it only with the caveat that you get to do your own director's pass and that you can make it your own, But it's really, if you have passion for this short and you really know it in your marrow that it'll work as a feature, then I would say that's really the lightning in the bottle that you should pursue. Because it'll be rare if you're a gun for hire early on. You're not going to have the leverage probably to do a director's pass, and so it is a conundrum for sure. And I've passed up. I mean, I think right when the taking was sort of, it wasn't even the paint had dried. I think it had just been out a few weeks, and I got offered like this crazy amount of money to do a Bruce Willis action movie for it was 17 days, and I just heard how horrible how difficult he is to work with, and I just passed. And look, I'm in debt. I went into debt making my movie, and it was a lot of money. And I in retrospect maybe we'll regret it, but I passed it up. And so,
it takes a lot of courage to turn that down.
Yeah, you have to be true to yourself, and it's also, you have to really look at the material and say, is this something that I can actually do? I mean, there's certain movies that I could never make that I love, that I respect, that are just not going to be something that I can own, and so I'd say it's the practical side of it, and it's also the creative side of it, and if you can get in there, and if it's a great concept that maybe not executed properly, and you can kind of get in and paint it, whether it's yourself rewriting it or somebody else that you trust, then that's a conversation. But if not, then I would focus still on your passion, and it's always going to be, nobody wants to give a first-time director the shot, and so the other side of that is if there's money on the table, and it's a harder thing, and so I don't envy that debate, but the good news is you have something that people are responding to, and see where it takes you, see where, because the good news is if it doesn't go anywhere and you don't get it capitalized, you can always still leverage that into an ODA, give it a little bit of time, I'd say.
Okay, cool. Because the other projects are coming my way sooner than, because we still haven't taken Slasher out yet, but other projects have been coming up before that. So that's why I'm trying to figure out, should I wait for this other thing or take something now, So it's, like you said, it's a conundrum, And, of course, Slasher is my huge...
Take the meetings, take the meetings, get excited, meet these producers, you never know where...
For networking.
What's that?
Yeah, for networking, right?
Yeah, networking. You never know where the relationship will go, and so that's all very positive. So congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, and congrats to you again on on your success. This is really awesome stuff.
Oh, thank you. I feel really grateful, and I'm just feel real lucky. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Sean, and also congrats to everything you have going on. Up next, we have Adrian. Adrian is on the line. Can you hear us, Adrian?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Hello. Nice to meet you, Adam. My question is, as an actress who likes your work, how would I audition specifically to be the teacher?
As for acting?
No, just as a principal role.
Principal role?
How to audition for a principal role for which film?
I'm just saying, for any future work that you might have coming up.
Are you an actor in LA?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, I mean, usually it's if you do you have representation?
I don't at the moment. I just recently started background acting and doing a lot of stuff like that. I've taken acting classes for years, and I've also been I've been in several plays, theatrical.
Are you in the union?
No, I'm not.
Right. Are you? Yeah. It's again. That's always the conundrum as well. I mean, on the acting side, it's tough because you have to kind of get in the union, and so it's like this weird catch-22. Your first step is to get representation because your reps will be the ones who engage with the open, the casting calls and so forth, and so. There are a lot of sort of mom and pop agencies in town that will do open readings and stuff, and you can start with a commercial agent potentially. There's a lot of open sort of commercial agents that will take people like a Friday afternoon audition and stuff. So you kind of have to build piecemeal initially. And again, going back to the gal who was asking about the writing and getting in the agencies, like you gotta sort of start making those relationships. It's really tricky. Right, acting is, it's tough. I still feel that the best thing an actor can do is learn how to produce because, again, they're taking the randomness and the lack of control and then putting it in their own hands. So what that's like. I always use the example of Bob Thornton. Bob Thornton casted and paid such, and he developed Sling Blade as a monologue. He used to perform it down on Venice Pier, and people thought he was crazy. And he developed it over a 7-year period, and then he wrote the movie, and then he got the movie financed, and then the rest is history. He made his own luck, and for acting, that's really the way you got to empower yourself.
Okay. Thank you.
And getting into an ensemble company and doing shows, and putting yourself to work out there is important. But again, learning how to produce the way that there's 1,000 reasons why one person is passed over another. And the other side of that is if you wanted to do work, start on union, but go to casting or any other casting agency, suddenly you get on set, you see how sets operate, you get to meet people. And sometimes what happens is you'll be bumped up, and so you'll be a hero extra. They like your face, they like your look or something, and then they give you a line, and that does happen occasionally. And so try to get on productions as an extra and sort of learn your way around that way as well.
All right. Thank you so much, Adrian. Up next, we have time for one more question, and that is actually with Brandon's son, Ricky. Look, Ricky, welcome to the interview. Oh, Ricky, can you hear us?
My dad is Brandon.
Can you hear him?
Hello?
Can you hear him or no?
No.
Oh, Ricky, can you speak into the phone, please?
Hold on. His phone might be muted. Here. Stop. Can you hear me yet?
Yeah.
Not really.
Hello.
No? Here, I'll let him use my phone.
I am interested in.
Start over.
Okay. Hello, Adam. My name is Ricky.
Hi, Ricky.
I am Brandon's son.
Hey, buddy.
Hi. I am interested in becoming a director when I get older. What are some steps you recommend for me to be prepared for a career as a director?
Oh crap! Another director in the family, huh? Are you what excites you about filmmaking? Why do you want to be a director?
Because my dad wants to be one too, and I really like movies.
Well, the good news is you can start if you have it. Do you guys have an iPhone?
No.
All right. Well, if you can get yourself eventually, Dad, maybe for Christmas or a birthday, can get you a simple camera. you can start making your own movies right in your backyard. My sister and I used to make short films just kind of playing around, and you get to learn how to put a story together. If you look at like Steven Spielberg, and he was making little short films with his train sets as a kid, and you can start doing that now. You can start cutting stuff together, and there's a couple of different apps if you can use iMovie, or I'm sure there's a couple of PC-based ones, but I would say you start playing around with it, start taking pictures, start looking at the world through a filmmaker's lens, and yeah, I guess that would be my answer.
Thank you. Thanks again for your time, sir.
You're welcome, Ricky.
There you have it. Thank you so much for your time again, Adam. Do you have anything to plug? Maybe social media pages or an official page you'd like to plug?
No, but you can find me on Twitter, and anybody who didn't get to ask a question can ping me on Twitter, and hopefully I can respond back. And it was a pleasure to talk to you guys. Humbling and excited to be a part of this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
and
you,
once
Adam.
again, Twitter is ADAMROBITEL. I think I got it right. You can also find me at Erman, ERMAN_LA, Brandon, BWAITES07, and MixKnowledgy. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at MixKnowledgy. We'll see everybody next week.